Hey guys, welcome back. It's TJ and Brad from Susie's Sweet Shop, and today we are doing another business vlog for you. We've had a lot of questions about starting a bakery, so we thought we would kind of walk you through the process of what it takes, what do you do in order to start a bakery. So we're gonna kind of break it down into different categories of what you need to do. So first, you need to name your business, create a brand, logo, things like that, and I'll let our graphic designer talk about that a little bit to give you an idea of how you can come up with that.
Well, I think first you got to figure out what you're going to do, right? Like just with any business,
What you're selling,
what your idea is, and then you can create your look and feel around it. So there's lots of resources now that you can use online that can help you do that quite easily. As far as creating your brand and your logo and things like that.
Yeah, like there's logo generators for free online and stuff like that. If you don't want to go pay a graphic designer, you're going to get something that's more unique and more professional looking if you do use a designer, but you don't have to. You can certainly use free tools to get started, so that I know when you're starting a business, you want to save as much money as you can. And you know, those are things that you can always grow in the future and upgrade on.
Absolutely. And the other thing you want to do when you first start out is make sure your name is available, because you don't want to be picking a name that's trademarked by another company. So there are different ways to check trademarks. It's different depending on what country you're in. So I would just Google the name of your country and trademark laws or trademark search or something along that line, so that you'll be able to see if
because each country has their own trademark database that would would show all the businesses that are registered, and obviously if there's a business already registered with that name, you cannot have that name. So I mean, you can go start operating with it, but you're going to get a cease and desist as you start operating and they find out that there's someone else operating with their name. So save yourself all that time and hassle and
do your research.
Money and do your research first to make sure that the name you want is available. On that same line, while you're registering your business, you should also do things like grabbing your domain name, so your www.whateveryourbusinessis.com or whatever you want for the end. Your social media handles. So you want to make sure, you know, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is that you want to be operating, grab the handles, even if you're not using them right away, whatever it is you want that business to be, grab those handles so that you have them already at your disposal. And then you'll also want to register for both a tax account and a payroll account. So for example, in Canada, if your business is generating $30,000 or more, you are legally required to register for a tax account. So you would have to be charging and remitting HST, which is what it's called where we live, or PST, GST in other provinces.
HST.
Yeah, and same with a payroll account. When you pay your employees each month, you also will be paying taxes on top of what you're paying them. So you have to have an account that you can remit the payroll to the government as well. So you may as well do all of that up front at the beginning of the process.
And like we've said in other videos before, there are a lot of organizations out there like Chamber of Commerce, things like that have courses or my small business startup seminars that would help you go through some of these steps and know what you're supposed to do and what you're not. We were able to do it with the help of Women in Business here in Halifax. They pointed TJ in the right direction to get all that stuff lined up for us when we opened our business originally.
Okay, so then you also have to determine what type of bakery do you want to be. Are you going to be retail, which means you sell directly to your customer, or do you want to be a wholesale bakery, meaning you sell to other businesses who then in turn sell to their customers? So if you're going to be a retail bakery, then you have to decide, do you want to be a bakery cafe where you're going to also specialize in drinks and have room in your storefront that people can come in and sit? Do you want to be counter service only? So you would only need a smaller footprint for people to come in and just pick up baked goods to take home with them. Do you want to be specialty or full service bakery? So for us, example, we specialize in cupcakes, cookies, just all things sweet. You will not find bread in our location. So you have to decide, are you going to offer all types of baked goods, or do you want to specialize in a certain type of baked good and go from there? And if you want to be a wholesale bakery, you're generally going to need more space and a greater capital investment, because wholesale relies more on volume of sales, and you're going to be selling at a cheaper price, because there needs to be margin built in there for the wholesale customer to be able to mark the product up to sell to the end consumer. So generally you'll have to produce a lot more, which means you'll need more equipment to do that.
More automation and stuff. Yes.
Exactly. But on the flip side of that, you also won't need a front of house staff or a retail area if you're going to be a wholesale bakery. So you have to just kind of decide which route you want to go.
With wholesale too, you probably don't need to have, your location might be more strategic far as being able to be a shipping location or delivery location, so that you want it to be more accessible that way, versus, you know, retail, you might want to be in a highly densely populated area where you have lots of walk-in traffic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So next up, you're going to want to write a business plan. So it's really important. You need to determine what kind of products are you going to be selling. You want to have marketing strategies. Who are you going to be selling your products to? What are your financial projections? Like, can you even be profitable doing this? So you need to look at all of those things and have a good idea. It basically walks you through the steps of all the things you need to consider to open a business, to determine if, do you have a solid, is this a solid business
model? Yeah.
Model, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and your hours of operation. Is it something you can work, 6 days a week or 7 days a week, or is it 5 days, So these are all things that you're going to need to consider in your business plan and when you're going through it. And it helps you organize your thoughts into one spot, so that, the banks and other lending institutions and landlords can see it and say, oh, they understand what they're doing. Here's the numbers. They have the numbers to back it up. So
exactly. And at that point, you're also going to want to create what your menu is going to be and cost out your recipes. Because if you don't know your costs, you don't know how to set your prices, and you don't know if you're actually going to be able to make money. So it kind of all goes hand in hand with your business plan. The financial side of your business is basically the most important, because if you can't manage that part, then your business won't be able to go into the long term, basically. From there, you're going to want to look at loans and startup capital. So, do you already have money set aside? Is it something that you can fund yourself, or even a portion of it can fund yourself? If not, you're going to have to look at taking out a bank loan, business line of credit, or there are special small business loans, which typically will have a smaller interest rate than
and there's grants and things like that, depending on your location. I know that some during last couple of years, there's been grants given to small business to help them survive the challenges that we've been facing. So there's also that on a regular basis too. So you just have to make sure you check out all those things as well.
Yeah, see what's available in your area, because there could be grants available to you. You'll also want to set your budget, and then when you're budgeting, to also allow for extra months of your operating expenses. That's something I find a lot of people don't think of when they're starting a business, is they'll just look at how much does it cost to open my doors, but they don't really think of, well, what if I'm not really making a lot of sales those first couple of months? I can open my doors, but how long can I keep them open? So make sure you have at least a couple months worth of operating expenses in your bank account or as part of your loan, to ensure that you can get through those first few months until money starts coming in and you're generating a profit, because you generally will not make a profit initially. Okay. Next part.
Commercial leasing.
Yeah, you'll want to look at a space to lease. So you want to talk about the different things to think about?
Leasing, or space in general, it depends on the type. If you're doing, like we touched on it a moment ago, location's very important, whether you're wholesale or retail. You want to make sure that you're locating yourself in a spot that is beneficial to your business and the hours that you need to be opened. A good example is we took a space that was in the basement or in the main level of an office complex, which the through traffic was extremely high, but there was no weekend traffic. And the majority of our business happens on Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right? So a lot of that was lost. So that, even though that was a high volume traffic area, it wasn't ideal for us just because
it wasn't the right location for our business model. So you really have to look at that.
Yep. So location's important. Demographic of your area. So if you're going and selling something that's targeted more to a younger demographic, you don't want to go set up in the middle of
senior residential area.
Yeah. You might want to try to target universities and areas like that. Accessibility is the other thing. You might have the greatest location, but people have a hard time finding you or seeing you. Those are all very key things in getting into your space. And competition. So if you pick a space that is surrounded by your competitors, it's going to be very hard. Or it might be very good depending on the mix of competitors that you have around you.
Yeah, it depends on the type of business you're in. Because if you look at like McDonald's, they'll all be like fast food places in general. They're all going to be set up around the same area because they've all determined that that is a good area to be in. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's great for that type of business. But for a bakery, you don't really want to have two side by side because there's generally not as many people. What am I trying to say? The pool of customers isn't as great as, you know, grabbing lunch every day. You have one birthday a year. You have like a special occasion maybe once a month kind of thing, as opposed to eating meals twice, 3 times every single day. So you have to look at them.
Then you need to look at the size of the space you need. Like, is it something that you can do in 1,000 square feet, or is it something you need to do in 5,000 square feet? So you've got to kind of plan that out and look at your needs in that aspect as well. The other thing you need to be careful of, which people sometimes will overlook, is zoning. So is the space you've got zoned properly for you to have your type of business there? Also, other regulatory requirements like health and safety, making sure that you've meet their guidelines. Any of these, if you have different bylaws in place.
Like accessibility for wheelchairs or things like
that.
Yes,
like garbage one we got hit with or educated on is like in our city we have a very advanced garbage what's the word I'm looking for? Very advanced garbage collection system in place, or right? Okay, so we have to have 4 or 5 different garbage bins labeled a certain way with a certain label. So you just got to make sure that you kind of look at those things too and make sure you don't get surprised by any of that. The other things you want to kind of look at is what type of neighborhood are you in? Are you in a high crime area? Like, you don't want to think this is the best location and find out every night you have to sit in your shop worrying if someone's going to break in or not. And then as far as this kind of ties into the leasing, if you can find a really good real estate agent, a commercial real estate agent, they're worth their weight in gold, because they'll be able to let you know roughly what this cost per square foot is. Plus, they will get you other things that you wouldn't ask for. Build out time, so free rent for X number of months while you renovate the space. There could be other things that they ask for, as far as, you know, if you have a 5-year term, for example, they might get you the right to renew that 5-year term X number of times before The landlord can lease it to another person. So lots of things like that. So it's
tenant improvement fees. So that's a very standard thing to ask for. It's really going to depend on the space that you're looking at and what type of landlord you have. We've had 3 different locations in our experience, and depending on the type of landlord we have, we were offered different things. So with a small landlord, you're probably more inclined, you'll get maybe some free rent. But for larger, like corporate landlords, they typically include free rent, tenant improvements, which means they will pay money towards the upgrades that you do in the location. So those are very standard things. So make sure that you're trying to negotiate for those things, because it's very standard in the industry.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is finding out about permits and licenses. So some examples we have there.
Yeah, so with the permits and licensings, so you, especially with our builds, we had to get pre-approval. We had to show a floor plan to the city to get a
construction.
to get a construction or building permit. So we got a local interior designer that was able to give us an AutoCAD drawing of all of the different, like sewage, electrical, all those things that they required. So you have to make sure that you do your homework with your local governing body, I think is the best way to say it.
Basically, it's going to depend. It varies depending on your local laws and regulations. So you need to see what they are for your city, because
or county,
what
or
they are
state,
for us. Basically, wherever you're located, you need to see what your laws are, because they're going to be different depending on where you are. But just to give you some examples, like Brad said, the construction or building permit, you'll need a food permit. So typically it'll be like the type of food establishment that you're going to be running. They have specific licenses for this is what you're able to operate out of this location. You'll have a fire permit saying here's the number of people that you can have your occupancy in this location. If you want to hang signs or awnings outside, there are permits you have to get for things like that. And then even as far as operating within your location, if you're dealing with food, then you and your employees will have to have food handlers courses. That's something locally we need. I don't know in other countries what that's like, but there are a lot of different permits and licenses that you may need. So make sure you do your homework and see what is required for your area. Okay. Next will be designing your space layout and the construction and renovations that we were just starting on there. So first you want to look at organizing your kitchen and the equipment that you're going to need. So typically if you're having a retail bakery, you're going to have a back of house, which is your kitchen area, and then a front of house, which is your customer service serving area. So you're going to have to see what type of equipment you're going to need, which is, we'll get into that in the next step here, but that will be dependent on, your layout will be dependent on what you need to fit into your space, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You need to make sure that you can fit everything that you need into the space that you're going to be occupying, or that space obviously is not for you. It will also be dependent on any existing water and gas lines or ventilation that is required in your space. What else for your space layout? You'll have
electrical is in there too, right?
Yeah.
Emergency lighting and things like that. Exit signs. Make sure that you're always following whatever the building code is in your local area.
Yeah. But one of your first big expenses is going to be your build-out costs. So unless you're lucky enough to find a location that was already a bakery before you move in and it has everything that you need, then you're laughing if that's the case. But if not, more than likely it was being used for some other purpose before you go in there, and you will have build-out costs. So you have to consider plumbing, electrical, drywall, any millwork that you want made. As we just said, ventilation, like if you're going to be having fat fryers or things like that, you're going to have a venting hood or whatever
yeah.
they're called. So those are all things that you have to
and air
be
conditioning.
prepared for.
Yeah,
HVAC.
Yes, if you need to put more air conditioning in space. Yep.
Definitely.
Okay.
The other considerations when designing your space is to keep in mind that you need area or space to be able to have storage, to do your food prep. So both for baking, and if you're a cake shop like we are, you need space for being able to decorate your cakes. Packaging, so space where you can package up all your products. If you're going to be shipping, then you'll need some extra space for those extra supplies that you'll need and the room to be able to physically package them. And you'll also need space for displaying. So like your front of house, you'll need your all your display cases and things like that, because you've done all this work and now you want to be able to sell your products, so you need to be able to display them to your customers. And one thing we do recommend is, you know, again, starting out any business, you want to try to do it for the least amount possible. So anything that you can DIY, so do it yourself, certainly do that. But I also recommend doing it in a way that still keeps you looking professional. You know, I see some places sometimes where you can tell that they've just taken random.
Yeah, you can tell that they were fortunate enough to move into a pizza joint that had very similar needs, but they didn't update the decor to match what they're doing. And when they tried to do it, they didn't do it they didn't execute it properly. So just make sure that when you're doing that kind of stuff, that if you're not comfortable with it, you know, sometimes it's good to get the professionals. Things that I wouldn't try to DIY yourself, anything electrical or plumbing.
Oh goodness, no. No,
but like
you need professionals for those things.
But a lot of things that you can do to help the professionals that you get in there is you can go in and clean in the evenings. You can help them, painting, cleaning, like just getting stuff unpackaged out of their ways, like things like that. Anything you can do to help your trades keep your job going, moving ahead is good too.
Or even just like little decorations to make it more your space.
Yep.
Things like that is what I'm referring to. Not so much, I mean, unless you're great and can build millwork and things like that yourself, sure, but if not, I wouldn't recommend that. It's going to look very professional if you go and start trying to build your counters and things like that. So, I mean, it depends. If that's the look you're going for, then have at it. So next up, you're going to want to look at ordering your equipment and supplies. So depending on the type of baked goods that you're going to be making, will depend what type of equipment you're going to need. So basically any bakery is going to need mixers, ovens, types of refrigeration like fridges and freezers. You will need pan racks that hold all of your baked goods, a triple sink because it's an absolute requirement in any commercial food establishment. You have to have a triple sink. And then of course your small wares from like whisks to spatulas to bowls, whatever. Those are all types of equipment that you're going to need. And then depending on the type of baked goods you're making, you might need specialty things like if you're doing bread, then you might need proofers. If you're making, I don't know, pizza dough, or you're decorating a lot of fondant cakes, you might want to get a sheeter for doing out your fondant and things like that. So it's going to depend on what you're specializing in and offering. So you also want to have a good starting inventory of your raw ingredients and your packaging. So you're going to want to source your suppliers in advance so you know who you're going to be using. Do you have local restaurant supply stores that you can just go to on a weekly basis and stock up, or is it stuff that you have to order in and have delivered on whatever the rotational basis that you determine you need? So you'll want to look and compare costs for all of that. Generally, it's cheaper to go to a restaurant supply store and purchase yourself, but you also have to weigh out the time versus money and decide what's more beneficial to you. But starting out, you'll probably want to do some of that to save some money at the very beginning. Something I do recommend when you're looking for your equipment is see if there are any restaurant auctions going on in the near future in your area. Basically, when businesses go out of business, so food businesses go out of business, their stuff is usually up for auction, and you can generally score some pretty good deals on used equipment at auction. So that is definitely a good place to start. We did a lot of ours like that when we first started out. And you know, you don't have to start out with brand new, best of everything right from the get-go. You can upgrade your equipment over the years, which is what we did too. So we started out with like a used oven that we got at an auction, and then bought brand new ones, you know, after time, and we were making money and needed more capacity. So it's, you know, things like that. Look to how you can save some money along the lines. You want to do the next one? I know you love that one.
So the next thing you have to do is determine how many team members you're going to need, and then you're going to have to hire them and train them. So if you're going to need front of house people that are dealing with customers, kitchen staff that doing the baking, and what level do you want them at. So you're going to have people that are high level pastry chefs, or you're just going to have people who learned on their own. That's really up to you and how you manage that, but that's one thing you're going to have to do, is make sure that you figure out how many staff members you need to cover your hours, and what roles they'll play. The other thing you want to make sure is if most areas will probably have requirements as far as first aid, WMIS, and some kind of food handling safety course. Like I said, but that all depends on your geographical location and what your requirements are. The other thing you want to do is think about, do you want to have an agreement with your employees? So do you have a
So you mean employment contracts?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, non-compete clauses. It also will outline their hourly rate, what if you're giving them if their salary, if they're hourly, you know, do they get vacation, so on and so forth. It also will talk about keeping everything confidential, so far as your recipes,
confidentiality agreement,
right, and things along that line. So just keep some of those things in mind when you're hiring employees, and just to be honest when you deal with employees, just be honest with them and be truthful with them. There's nothing worse than you can do is over-promise an employee and under-deliver. It's better to tell them up front that this is what I can offer you, this is what I've got, and then it's in their court to make the choice. Not like, oh, don't give them a pie in the sky, because this will come back to bite you in the ass if you can't actually follow through on it.
Definitely. So next up is, well, we're at this point, you've found your space. You've equipped it with everything that you need. You've found some employees, and you're pretty much getting ready to open. So now what do? You need to find some customers. So you need to look at your marketing and advertising. So do some market research. Determine who is your target market. What are the demographics? Like, how much money do they make? Is it primarily women or men, or, you know, this age group? Look at the competition that's in your area. What are they offering, and what are their prices like? And are there any niches that you can fill that others aren't filling, people aren't already in that area? So those are really important things to do. From there, you're going to decide, do you want to use traditional types of advertising? So like television, print, radio, what am I trying to say?
Print, you got them all, yeah.
Okay. I'm like,
one of the things that you'll notice, though, once you open your doors, you're going to have lots of opportunities presented to you for advertising.
Oh, yes. More than you'll ever need.
So just be smart about it. Think about where the advertising is going, the cost of it, and the return that you think you can get on it. Because a lot of people...
And who their target market is, because they may not match.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, let's say a hunting magazine. Obviously, though, they're not going to be your target audience that you're trying to reach. So you're not going to advertise with that type of business. So make sure that whoever you're choosing to put your money into, that it's a good match for what you're selling. And one of the most important things from the get-go is social media and website. You cannot have a business today and not have a website or be on social media. I shouldn't say that you can't, but you're silly if you don't. Personally, as a consumer myself, if a business doesn't have a website, I'm less inclined to buy from them. I just feel less trustworthy towards them, or they're not, what am I trying to say?
Keeping up with the times?
Yeah. Like, I like to do a lot of my shopping.
You like to do research.
In advance.
Yeah.
So I want to know what people offer, what their pricing is, all of that kind of stuff. So, as a business, put that out there for your customers. They want to know. It's good for them and it's good for you, because it's going to waste less of both of your time. You're going to keep getting the same questions over and over again for you to answer, because you're not putting the information out there. And you're just making it more likely that your end customers are just going to bypass you. They're just going to move on to the next business that does have that information there for them. So definitely make sure you at least have a business website, even if it's just a single landing page, just something to show that you're there. And then social media, that is going to be your best form of advertising for the least amount of money. So using platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it is that you choose. It is hard as a business owner to be on every single platform, but it is important to build those relationships and network with your customers and have, a direct line to your end customer. All right, so we're at our end now, basically, and I just wanted to give you a list of additional costs for you to consider. I know a lot of times people will look at the initial investment and say, okay, well, here's my capital costs. I'm ready to open my business, but they don't really think of what do I need going forward. Just like I said earlier about making sure you have a few months worth of operating costs. These are the type of things that you need to budget for, to have ready and available every single month in order to keep your business running. So I'm just going to quickly run through some examples just so it's in your mind and you know to think of these things. So payroll, as I said, there's both paying your employees as well as paying the payroll taxes to the government as well. You'll have your rent every single month.
Rent?
I know.
Rent.
You'll have rent.
Rent.
I don't know what rents, but you'll have rent. Your ingredients and packaging supplies every single month, you're going to have those. Electricity, heat, water, your phone and internet, insurance, any advertising expenses, workers' compensation. You may want to invest in a security system with cameras. So you may have additional hosting services or things like that. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Your office supplies. So yes, you're a bakery, but there are still administrative things that you need.
Markers.
You got it. All the little office things you need. Pest control. This doesn't mean that you have pests, but when you are working around food, there's always the potential, because you're going to attract pests. So it is, and even in a lot of places, it's a legal requirement to have a pest control in place anyways. So basically you'll want a monthly pest control service to come to your bakery. Some areas require garbage removal fees, like we have to pay to have our garbage taken away. So it's something to consider as well. Like these are things you probably wouldn't think of as a business owner. I know we didn't think of it before we started. So it's like, pay for our garbage, what? Yep. You'll want an accountant or a bookkeeper, maybe lawyers, like you want different types of professional services available to you, but definitely at least an accountant and bookkeeper. You may want laundry service for all of your towels and aprons and things like that. unless you're planning to take them home and wash them all yourself. You may want a cleaning company to come in and clean your space, so that's a cost to consider. You're going to have bank fees. So basically any bank you use, there are fees for the services, from, you know, writing a check to depositing cash. Like, there's fees associated with that. You'll have your payment processing fees. So whoever you're using for your debit terminal, there is a fee associated with all those every single month as well. Your web hosting and any online store fees. So if you're going to be doing online orders, whoever you set up with, there will be a monthly fee for using their services and hosting your website. Courier or shipping fees. So if you're going to be offering local delivery or shipping, you will have those additional fees as well. If you're going to offer any kind of employee benefit programs like health insurance or things like that, to consider. Any membership fees. So if you want to be part of your local Chamber of Commerce, have a Costco membership, different networking groups or food service association groups. You know, there's a lot of groups you can join that, say for example, if you join them, you'll get a lower rates with your payment processor or things like that. So there will be at least a few that you're going to want to be a member of that will save you money elsewhere, but it is still fees that you need to consider. Yeah. I'm sure there's even more than that, but those were all the ones that we could think of off the top of our heads. Yeah. Feel free, if I've missed any, to type them down below for others to think of. But that's pretty much what we got for you today. So hopefully we've given you a good idea of what it involves in order to start your bakery. You know, obviously it's not just a simple process, but this at least gives you kind of an overall guideline of things that you need to consider in order to get the ball rolling. So good luck to anyone who is out there wanting to start their bakery. If you have any specific questions, feel free, leave them down below, and we'll certainly get back to you with some answers. Hopefully, if we have some answers.
If not, we'll just say we don't know.
There you go.
That's my answer. I don't know.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you again soon. Bye.